Save the date for .NET Conf 2020, happening this year on November 10th through 12th. With this year being our 10th anniversary, there'll be tons of great announcements like the launch of .NET 5, and we'll also have some surprise guests too. So please make sure you check us out for this free 3-day virtual developer event where you'll see live sessions from the .NET community as well as various product teams. Head over to .NETconf.net to learn more and tune in. Well, if you're into strawberry milkshakes, banana cake pops, and hot chocolate, then we definitely have the episode for you. In this episode of the On.NET Show, we're going to have Michael on. He's going to show us how we could do real-time data fetching with his GraphQL library called HotChocolate. So stay tuned and check it out. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the On.NET Show. I'm your host, Cecil Phillip, and Michael's back, and he's going to talk to us a little bit more about how we could build GraphQL services using his interesting package called HotChocolate. So, Michael, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm great. I hope you are great too. And
yeah.
I have a lot of new stuff. So today we are going to not only talk about HotChocolate, but about Strawberry Shake. And Strawberry Shake is our GraphQL client API that you can use with Xamarin or Blazor. And we are going to use it together with Blazor to build a real-time application.
Michael, you got to tell me, man, where do you get these names from? Like, we got hot chocolate, we have strawberry shake. Like, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be coding or if I'm supposed to be like going up for dessert or something.
Yeah, actually, my brother came up with all of these names at Starbucks.
Right.
So it's always difficult to name an API. So he just went with hot chocolate and strawberry shake.
Sure, man. You just take inspiration from the closest thing around you. That makes it easy, right?
Yes, that's true.
Nice. So we're going to talk about this thing called real-time data fetching. So before we dive into it, why don't you tell us what exactly is real-time data fetching and why is that something that we should be concerned about?
Yeah, like real-time applications like Slack or Microsoft Teams, and all these applications are very engaging applications that really draw the user into it because they really interact with the consumer. So in a lot of use cases, people want to have this real-time capabilities where the server actively pushes data down to the client. Yeah, with GraphQL, real-time data fetching is really easy. Since when we look at GraphQL, let me just quickly pull up banana cake pop and type up a little query just to give you an impression how real-time data fetching works. Let's start with a simple query. In GraphQL, we have operation types. So the first that we learned about last episode was basically the query. So just the ability to fetch data. So that's basically the get of REST, if you will. So I could fetch, for instance, here the ID from the currently signed in user. Then there is something else, something called, let's call this A. Then there's something else called a mutation. A mutation is basically modifying something on the server. Everything that has to do with side effects. So we could write it up basically like a query. The only thing that is different here is that we essentially wrote here mutation. And real-time data fetching, it works the same. I just type in subscription, and then I can pick from my real-time events, like on message received. Do that. And then pick the things I care about from my backend data model. And that's basically it. It's like writing a query, but more powerful. So let's do some little experiment with it. Let's create a new...
And while you're typing really quickly, I just want to clarify this. So when we talk about these subscriptions and things like that, is this something similar to like creating a webhook or a callback function or something like that, but just we're doing with GraphQL?
Yeah, that's a very good question because most people think GraphQL is actually about HTTP only. But GraphQL is transport agnostic. And it uses actually a variety of transports. Like in this case, we are using web sockets, but GraphQL subscriptions could also be delivered over SignalR.
Oh, nice. Okay. And is that something that we can configure using HotChocolate? We could configure the transport it's using underneath?
Yes. And we will have a look at how we configured from the client side. From the backend side, it's very easy because we use WebSockets middleware from ASP.NET Core. On the client side, we had to build quite a lot of stuff to make it very simple to use. Okay, I think that's really the best thing. Let's head into the client and have a look at how we set up the whole thing in Blazor, and then we'll see how real-time data fetching really works. So this is a very simple Blazor application. It essentially, let me run it. Run. And then we built it a little bit up. It's basically a Slack clone or a Teams clone, whatever you want.
Okay. And then you're using Blazor in WebAssembly, right? You're not talking about like server-side Blazor. You're talking about Blazor in the browser.
Yes, we are talking about Blazor for WebAssembly, because this is really where real-time data fetching is really cool. It's where you run dotnet in the browser. And this really allows us to build rich SPA application, which was not possible with .NET a year ago, I would say. So what I have here is basically a simple layout. I have the users that can send messages to me, or to which I can send messages, but I don't have a message area yet. And what we built in is here some message bubbles, then maybe a text box where we can type messages and we can send them. And then we send real-time events in. I will give you a link and you could just send me some messages in. Okay, let's do it. So first, let's have a look at our Blazor application. Every Blazor application is very similar to any other application in .NET Core. It starts with a program CS. The program CS holds all the configurations, the service setup. What we can see here is that we use the HTTP client factory to set up basically the simple get fetch logic for GraphQL, or the post logic that you use to send in data. And then we have something which is called the add WebSocket client. And this is built by us. It's basically, it tries to mirror a bit the HTTP client factory because it's so simple to use. But underneath, you can integrate middlewares to handle things like connection aborts and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yes, and then we have something which is the add chat client. And the add chat client is actually our Strawberry Shake generated client. So how does
I'm guessing Strawberry Shake generates clients based on build. So you're using that same GraphQL schema that's coming from the server, and it'll generate some code for you to do that type of thing?
Exactly. So basically it was like we have a schema here, which is already pulled down. It's the schema representation that we pulled from the server, and it describes all the types that we have available.
Okay. So with this schema, is this, like you said, you pulled it down. Can I just point the clients to like my backend server, or do I have to like download that GraphQL file? And then now that'll have to be a part of my build process.
So we actually have a little tool, and that's a .NET local tool, which is not set up here. It's set up one folder above. It's just a local tool, and it allows you to call .NET GraphQL commands. And there's a command .NET GraphQL init, where you specify the URI the first time. Then it basically creates a little config here, which tells the compiler where it can fetch a new schema from time to time. You also can force it. Yes. So the second thing is, in GraphQL, I don't want to generate the whole client from the schema, because I want to be very specific about what data I fetch. Like in the queries that I built, and let's have a look at this query file. This is basically the query file that fetches the left-hand side. So this builds up our user list. And from this, the MS Build process will compile a client that we have here. This is a chat client. And we have things like what we can see here. We are consuming a person here. So we have a person interface. And this person interface has only the properties I use. Okay. And with this, I can interact with my client. Let's have a look at the main razor here, which basically just asks the client to get the people. Okay, so let's put some real-time logic in here and see how we can build this client up to be a little bit more complex. So for this, let's grab our query that we have here. Let's see, it works. But let's really rework this query and make it more usable for us. So the first thing is we have one operation in this document. In GraphQL, I can have multiple operations in a document. And this really translates into multiple methods on my GraphQL client in my demo application. So one application that we really would need is a mutation to send in messages.
Okay, so now when we think about mutation essentially is the opposite of querying. Querying is me saying, hey, can I have something, please? Can you look for this and return it? A mutation is saying, hey, I want you to change this.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's basically causing side effects on the server, changing data, and it's if you compare it to REST, it's the put, post, patch, delete.
Right.
So in this instance, we are just specifying what data we want to send in when we send the message. So we say text, and we leave that empty for now. And then in GraphQL, only the top field is the mutation. Everything beneath is really querying the changed state of the server. So in our case, we want to fetch the method that we just created. And from the message, we might want the ID, the direction, and the recipient, which again is an object. But just let's leave that open for now. And then we want the sender and maybe the sent date when the message was sent and the text. Okay, so we can see that this is the person, and we already can see that we have a person up here. And in GraphQL, we have something called a fragment. And the fragment is our primitive for composition that we can use to shape our data. So what we can do here maybe is specifying a fragment that is called people or a person on person. And this basically will describe how a person in our client will look like. So we will put that in here. And,
so you need person there twice. How come you have to put it twice? You have person on person. So why can't it just be person?
It's you will see in just a second. So basically, so the essential concept there is that I specify how the person is manifested in my domain. It could be that I need less properties than the actual person. And what I can do here is that I can say, okay, this uses person. And actually, I just need here just a couple of these fields for my person. So I could introduce another fragment, which I call participant. And this is the male participant in our communication. This is also a person.
Okay.
And actually, we need the first three properties. So now we can reshape that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And now we can use participant in here. Format that. Put some dots here for the fragment usage. And now we have a proper API that can send messages. Let's just copy that back and see how that changes our Blazor client. So we just put that in here. We recompile. Okay. And let's have a look at the person that are generated. So if we go to person now, it takes Visual Studio Code sometimes to reload the types. That's why we saw this error. So when we look at the person type, it now only has 2 properties, but it implements also participant, which has the other 3 properties. So by using fragments, I can really shape my data like I want the C# types to be in my domain.
Oh, got it. So fragments are pretty much just like, it's almost like templates. I don't want to say templates, but they're like shortcuts in creating like these reusable properties that I could have in different parts of my GraphQL definition.
Yeah, they are reusable components essentially that you can, yeah.
Okay.
And the cool thing then is that, for instance, in message, if I look at message, I'm using now participant, and you can see that these really connect. And this gives me all this reusability in my Blazor application or Xamarin application to use a proper model and shape it from the query.
Right, got it.
Okay, so let's head in and build that in and see how this shapes up. So let's, I think the time, it's going out of time, or what do you think?
Oh, you're fine. Keep going.
Keep going? Okay. So let's reshape the client here and put that data in. So we have already fetched the data, the initial users that we want to use. The next thing is that we want to do something when we click on a person. Basically, we want to display some components. For this, let's first uncomment this razor components here, which are my message bubbles, and let me really interact. Let me just uncomment them. Great. Okay, so let's head back to our main component and put our message list in. Message list is basically what I just uncommented. And I already prepared that. The one thing we also have to do is go to the imports and really allow my components that I just commented in to be used. So now my chat components. And now let's put it together. So what we need for our message list is a recipient and the messages to display. So what we are going to do is first we get the recipient. And so we type in here private recipient participant. Participant is my recipient here. Recipient. Or maybe let's take the person. And when I click on here, I basically already get from my sidebar the person. So the one thing I want to do here is first set the recipient to person. And then I want to grab from the server the messages that we just produced. So let's just copy the client usage from up here and just use not get people, but get send message. Oh, that is odd. We built a send message, which actually goes down here. But what we forgot was building in another fetch method that gets us the initial messages. So let's shortly get back in here. Add another query to our document, get messages. And you can already see that using fragments will come in handy. So what we want to do is maybe get from a person by email let's leave that empty and put that together in a second. We want to get the messages. And now we need to restructure a bit. So we grab this message, then we say fragment message on message, put that in. And now we say, okay, this is actually a message. And then we reuse this message here again. Why is it not? Just a second sometimes.
Is it one of those things you need to refresh or give it a second?
Not usually, but there is an error here. Ah, yes. Okay, so I copied the field from where I get the message. So just let's kick that out. And now this is a proper message. And we actually need to copy back the message in here and reformat the document. It should work. And also here, we actually have to ask for the messages from the person that we will fetch the data from.
Okay.
Let's put that in. Okay.
One question I had too while you're in here is GraphQL white space sensitive or no?
No. GraphQL can be formatted to one string. And what you can see here, I'm not using any commas. So there are no commas I'm using. And actually, GraphQL, the first thing a GraphQL parser does is get rid of the commas. And so we just need a space. If we don't have a space, we can put a comma in. But actually, this is how GraphQL looks like without the comma.
Okay.
People that come from JSON often use commas, but they are just removed. So let's put that back into our query. We compile that. Yes, and that's again Studio, which is the code. Getting my types. Okay. So let's get into our main method back. And now we have our actual message here, get message. Fetch that. And now we have to put it somewhere. We have now the messages here. We have the result that contains our message list. Show you that. Data. And there are all my messages down here. You can see that I still have to use the structure of that the server tells me.
Right.
But I can now reshape them. Okay.
Nice. That looks pretty good.
Yeah, let's create a simple list. The message. Do I have a snippet for that? No. Immutable. So I'm using an immutable list here. iMessage. Messages equals. So you don't have to use an immutable list, but in this case, where I get real-time updates, it's quite handy to use it. Okay. So we have an empty message list here. I can now just grab that, create a range here, and a range from iMessage and just dump my messages in here and assign that to my message list. Messages. Okay, so we basically have the data in here, and the data is bound here to our message list component. And now we need to build something in, tell our component to change, and also give the capabilities to send messages. So the first thing is, let's put a state has changed in here. And then put the last piece in our send message. And the send message is, again, very simple. We just have to copy now, copy down there, do a send message async here. And you can already see that we have data that we cannot pass into our method. And this is because we initially just put in some empty strings. So how do I get data into GraphQL? Because I don't want to do this string replacement that many people do with GraphQL, because GraphQL queries are actually compiled on the server and executed many times. So if you would put in like actual values here, the server couldn't optimize your query. So in GraphQL, there is a concept which is called variables. So I can say here there is a variable which is called email, and this is a string and it's not nullable. And then I can feed instead of static values in these variables. And since I'm on, yeah, that's an often made mistake that people don't use them, but that actually will result in slower queries and also more allocations on the server side. So let's put these guys in. And when I declare a variable in GraphQL, I also have to use it. So let's just put that in.
Okay, so you declared two variables, right? Text and email. And now you're just passing it into that send message function. So now I'm guessing when you go back over to Visual Studio Code right now, that you'll be doing the same thing, right? You'll be having two variables, text and message, right?
Yeah, they essentially now translate into parameters on my method.
Cool.
So essentially what you can now see is you are designing your methods that you have on your client. And you're designing also the parameters that you will have. And then essentially you create your own client as shaped as you want this client to be. And then you can, use that.
Cool. I really love the symmetry between the two of these, right? And that how you can create that definition inside of your GraphQL schema definition, I guess is what we're calling it. And now like the client and the server kind of already know what the contract is between the both of them and know how to start doing things.
Yeah, this is essentially the magic behind GraphQL. You, as the front-end developer, design your own contract with the server.
Nice.
And
cool.
This gives you a lot of power. And if you think about it, if you need an optimized request, you always had to go to one of the backend guys and ask, can you build me in this property? Or can you build me a specialized request that only has this and that data? And now you just specify it in your query language. So essentially, we now have here the parameters we can pass in the email here. And we can now pass in from our recipient the email and also the message text that we have passed in. So let's start that and hope it works. It builds.
Okay, and now we're going to run it and see what it looks like.
Yes. So we put a lot of components now in. So let's see if this works all out. Yes, it works out. So basically, I can pick now the audience, for instance, and can see that.
Great.
Yeah, I get these messages. And what I can do is now also write a message like, hello. Let's see. And it should return me that message. But there might be something wrong in my code. So let's quick fix it because there's still one component missing to get that really working. So what we did is put in the messages here. We changed the state. So it should have updated our data actually up here. We changed that. We put that in here, but it doesn't display for some reason. I know, I think. Let's go back to our query. We anyway have to build in our real-time capabilities, and then we fix what is wrong. What is actually wrong here with our messages is that the messages that are selected are not correctly ordered. So they are ordered in a unspecific way. So what we can do is use that order by here and tell it to order by the send date.
Got it. So what was happening before was that those messages weren't showing in order. So whenever you, even if you sent it, the message was there. You just weren't able to see it based on the order.
It was somewhere. I think that I have a UUID behind the IDs, and then it's somewhere in the middle.
Cool.
So we did that. And now we also need to declare our real-time event. And the real-time event is being done by this subscription on message received. And we don't need any variables because the server knows who we are. We could pass in variables here and also define that. But the onMessage received event is just another message. So we just say message. And actually, this field, we can rename it to be nicer in our server API. So we call it message. And this is called an alias in GraphQL.
Okay.
Okay, so again, let's grab that, copy it over, and then we are on.
So then this should be it now. So after this, our app should be working, the messages should be ordered, and we should all be be good. Yeah.
Okay, so let's have a look at our main Razor app. State has changed here. And let's build in our last method. And that's basically, I've prepared that as a template. It's a begin receive messages. And this is basically using our client to, I called it differently in my demo, in my snippet. So it's on received messages. And what it does is it asks for an iasync enumerable. And it gets back a message stream, and then it iterates over this message stream for however it takes the server to send all the messages, or the server to say, okay, it's enough, I drop you off, or maybe the client to say, I have enough, I don't want to listen to anything anymore, and then maybe cancel this. Cool. And we are using a task run here as a way to have a background task that iterates over this. In order to use that, we are just putting that in our initialize here. We can just start that when we start our application, and this will hook everything up. So let's run that and then send in some messages.
All right, so now you're just rebuilding now to get those new changes, and then now we should, I'm guessing it's going to kick over to the browser really quickly to just check those and make sure that everything is as we expect it to be.
Yeah. So we are going into the browser again. See why it's not opening. There, chat. So we can see I have selected already a person here. There is
you have a lot of messages.
And this. Yeah, and here you see the hello that we sent in earlier.
Right.
But how does real-time work? So I have a little URL, this one, which essentially brings up another Blazor application, which runs on Azure. And I can say, hello, Mike. Send it in, and we get the data.
Awesome, we did it. Yes, yes, fantastic.
That is real-time data with strawberry shake
and
hot chocolate.
Awesome. Well, Michael, hey, thank you again, man. That was a really amazing demo. I'm glad we could be able to, take it down and get it all the way over to the finish line. We're definitely going to have some more videos about GraphQL and also specifically about HotChocolate. So thank you for coming on, and thank all of you for watching. This has been another episode of the On.NET Show, and we saw how we could do real-time data fetching using the GraphQL library called HotChocolate.